Back on the Rob Dibble Show. Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. Thank you so much for keeping us on the air. I always first go to free agents at the end of this season. Then you go to the next season. But there's some very notable ones. And then try to note the ones that don't have club options. They're just straight up free agents and it's basically a rental unless you could lock up some of these some of these players. But I'll tell you one that just jumps right off for catcher is Yasmani Grandal with the Chicago White Sox. He does not have a club option. He's a free agent at the end of this season. Guy's got a great bat. He's not the greatest defensive catcher, but he's not awful either. So White Sox not going anywhere right now. That is a perfect one. Then some other guys that jump out at me, like a Josh Bell and guys like that do have a club option, which means that you could get that guy in a trade, maybe for some lower-level minor leaguers. He's got a huge bat, and you have him locked up for next year if you choose to. You choose to as a club option. So that's a lot of stuff when you're looking at guys that could possibly move in the next 8 days. Tim Anderson is another one. Very good shortstop, having a down year.
Yeah, you're talking about a fire sale right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm talking about, listen, Kenny Williams and those guys over there, when you're not winning with them, we'll get rid of some of them. Jose Abreu, they just let him walk this past offseason. Yeah. So I was shocked by that. When the guy's a AL MVP a couple of years ago and you just let him walk, and obviously he's not the same player he used to be. Tim Anderson is certainly not the player he was last year, has a club option, and you've got teams like the Red Sox that could use a shortstop. I mean, those are some quick fixes if you're looking to pick up a guy that's locked in with his contract for next year.
Honestly, I think Tim Anderson would be perfect for the New York Yankees.
Yes, he would.
Now you're going to have to sell on the whole Volpe fairy tale, which I know no one wants to sell that fairy tale.
Stick him at second base till he earns the right to play shortstop.
And then what are you going to do with Glaber Glabes?
Glaber Glabes doesn't really have he's having a good year.
He's your best hitter this year, minus Judge.
Yeah, no, you're right. But here's the problem with Glaber. He can play outfield. He's talented enough.
That's a good point.
He doesn't want to play shortstop.
No, we've already proven that.
Yeah.
Tim Anderson. I love that.
Tim Anderson's a big name.
I love that.
A big name.
Probably going to have to pay for it, but I love that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think? All right, so the who am I talking about? The Braves, of course. This team. I think they're like 11 up right now in the the division. They're 11 up. And it's just ridiculous. They added a couple of closers, or at least people on the back end of their staff. Pierce Johnson from the Rockies, also Taylor Hearn from the Rangers, which I found interesting. Mm-hmm. Hearn the lefty, Pierce Johnson the righty. What are your thoughts on those two going to the Braves?
I think those are great options because everybody needs help in their bullpen. And the quicker you can shore up some of these guys, and I'm sure that the Braves have talent in the minor leagues.
Yeah, that's what the trade's for.
Yeah, so your big leagues, these guys are so young with Acuna and, Albies and Arcia. And, well, actually, Arcia's 28. But Olsen's been unbelievable. Some of these guys are just, they're not giving up these jobs for 5 years. They're not. And so you're thinking about, okay, so where can we get younger pitching? And the guys, some talent in the minor leagues that we could possibly part with. I'm sure other teams are salivating over rating the minor league system of the Braves. So I think, you could easily be big players if you're the Braves. And everybody needs pitching, man. The only way you're going to win is with a deep bullpen or an extra starter, which not a lot of people want to give up a good starter.
All right, so talk about Jonathan India and the Reds and what this means and who wants them. What's the deal here going for the Reds as they're kind of selling a piece but possibly getting pieces for a run?
Well, listen, they're looking twofold. They think they can make a playoff run this year, but they didn't expect to be in the playoffs this year. They're looking
ahead of schedule.
They're ahead of schedule, and which is fantastic. They have a big series against the Brewers coming up here, where they could fall back or they could move back into first place against them. But when you're looking at some of the youth on this team, they could absolutely stand to get younger. Their catchers, other than Tyler Stevenson, are ancient. 32 and 34 years old. You could go in that direction if you're trying to get some return for India. Now, India is only 26 years old, and I think he still has some prime years ahead of him, but and then you throw in McLean, who's up for Rookie of the Year with Dela Cruz, 23 and 21 years old. You're thinking 26 is old in that lineup. So you're thinking that he's expendable.
There's a rumor about Adam Wainwright that he's about to come back for the Cardinals. He may have already made a start back from the Cardinals. Just an atrocious year for a guy that may have stayed on a little too long. He's 41. He's got to be the oldest, right?
But you probably want to give him one more shot at another ring.
That's the ask right here.
That's respect. That's a respect trade, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
If he's probably got a no trade clause.
Is it worth it for another team though?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because that guy could go 15 or 18 outs and win you some playoff games.
Yeah,
and that's it, to have a 3 or a 4 hold guy that's going to the Hall of Fame one day. I would absolutely want Adam Wainwright on my team. He's a gamer.
That was the report that an opener role for a different team, and you're probably looking at the
the Rays love an opener.
Exactly.
If you get 4 innings out of Wainwright, and rest him for a week. And get him right. That's the kind of stuff that the Rays, I'm sure, because I don't think Wainwright signed for a bunch of dough.
No.
Since he came back to play one more year. But he may be the kind of guy where I don't really want to go. I don't care if we go to the playoffs. I think he's got 2 rings. He's such a stand-up guy. So I think that would be mutual, that those teams would want him.
What would the Baltimore Orioles be willing to give up in order to make a big move during this trade deadline week?
I know they have one of the best minor leagues out there, so there's a lot, even A and AA guys.
I think it was voted the best the last 2 years.
So a lot of teams aren't thinking, hey, we're going to take guys off your big league roster. Okay. We're going to add to your big league roster, and we're going to go to your A and AA teams, and we're going to try to raid them. And, but listen, it's taken the Orioles 2 decades to get to where they are now. It took the Diamondbacks years to get to where they were when they won their first World Championship, and now they're kind of back that way with the youth.
Yeah.
And that's so. If you're let's put it this way: if you are a smart and very, very, very good general manager, you're going to be able to talk your way into raiding some of these great minor league systems, including the Marlins, including the Rays, the Orioles, the Diamondbacks. Those are the Reds. They're in positions for you to go in there and say, oh no, man, you need this guy for the postseason. So hopefully, like Nick Krall, who is the general manager of the Reds, you have to have a good relationship with that gentleman to be able to text him and say, hey, look at this guy. This guy's actually on an upside right now as a possible free agent. So he's just a rental, or he's maybe got 1 year club option that you don't have to pick up. Why don't you pick that guy? That's the kind of stuff you're talking about. It's kind of like Trevor Bauer with the Reds years ago. It's kind of like Sonny Gray. Where some of these guys, listen, The thing about the Oakland A's that I always liked about Billy Beane, I'm not a big Moneyball guy, but I did like the fact that he did this a few times. Matt Holliday is one that just comes to mind. Got him in a trade from Colorado, helped them get to the playoffs 1 year. In the offseason, then traded him for 3 other players. And so, even though the A's lost some players to get Holliday, they got players in return for him again when you traded him again. So that's what you're doing. So if you can find guys that fit into that 2 or 3 year guarantee on their contract that another team's willing to dump and take your lower level prospects, and now you can turn him around again because he has such a good year with you and get 3 more prospects from someone else. It's basically like, listen, even in the Trevor Bauer case, the Cleveland Indians traded for that guy, which was brilliant because he only had 4 starts for the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks had to pay him the $5 million signing bonus out of UCLA. So the Guardians won that deal because they didn't have to pay that bonus. So the other team paid the bonus. You get Trevor Bauer for a number of years. Then you trade him and get. So essentially, the Guardians, for all of that wear and tear, they still saved $5 million, and they still got prospects back in return. That's why some of these teams continue to win. Now, they're not winning championships,
right?
But they're still winning 85 to 95 games any given year.
I think of this week as a lot to do with my friends in the farmlands of Indiana. When we're talking about selling a cow to another farmer and we're doing a trade deal, and that cow is like a blue ribbon cow, right? But we're going to get 3 offspring cows. We don't know what they're going to be. If one of them, like you said, if one of them turns into a blue ribbon cow, now we're plus 2 cows. Yep. That's how my mind works in this whole trade thing, when what you're talking about right now.
Well, all right, so Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn's another guy on the White Sox. You know, he's a very good pitcher. He's got
an old cow.
Option. He's an old cow, but he's a cow that still gives milk.
Oh, yeah, always reliable
You
cow.
got a club option. Kenta Maeda from the Twins, another guy. He's a free agent at the end of the year. He would be a nice rental for a team.
Yeah.
You know, if the Twins are willing to take some young